Hey everyone, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a tragedy that absolutely shook the maritime industry to its core: the loss of the 33-person crew of the SSL Faro on October 1st, 2015. Now, for those of you training to go to sea, or maybe you're currently standing watch, it's absolutely critical to understand that the sinking of this vessel was not just some unpredictable act of God, it was a preventable Cascade event. It was a disaster built link by link through human error, corporate pressure, and mechanical failure. So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the pre-accident conditions. Then we'll break down the critical moments during the incident itself. And finally, we'll go over the aftermath and the crucial lessons learned.
All right, part one, before the incident, the chain begins.
Maritime disasters almost never just happen out of the blue. They're built from unsafe conditions long before the actual crisis hits. On the evening of September 29, 2015, the El Faro departed Jacksonville, bound for San Juan, plotting a course right through the Bahamas. Now, at the time of departure, a tropical system was brewing, and it was rapidly intensifying. But here's the thing. Corporate pressure from the operating company, Maritime, was a massive underlying factor here. Cargo schedules were super tight. San Juan needed its goods, so the captain opted for a straight shot through open water, rather than taking a safer, sheltered route, basically calculating that his ship could just outrun what was, at the time, only a tropical storm.
But what exactly was the captain trying to outrun the storm with? Well, the El Faro was an aging, 40-year-old roll-on/roll-off cargo ship, and most notably, she relied entirely on a single shaft steam turbine. Think about that for a second. That is a single point of failure. If that aging steam plant goes down, this 791-foot ship is left completely dead in the water, beamed to the waves. She was also carrying some really fatal latent vulnerabilities. Because of regulatory loopholes, decades of major conversions to the ship were grandfathered in, meaning they entirely dodged modern safety standards. Later forensic analysis of her sister ship actually revealed severe rotting steel in the ventilation trunks that serve the cargo holds. On top of that, she lacked modern enclosed lifeboats, and her damage control plans were severely outdated, so the stage was set for disaster long before the wind ever started howling.
Now, up on the bridge, the crew had two main sources of weather data. The SAT system provided plain text, highly accurate, up-to-the-minute data straight from the National Hurricane Center. Conversely, the Bon Voyage system, or BVS, had this pretty, visually appealing graphical interface, but the downloaded data files were often several hours out of date. Tragically, the captain relied heavily on those outdated BVS graphics, essentially plotting courses for a storm that had already moved and intensified into a Category 3 and later a Category 4 hurricane.
Moving on to part two. During the incident, the point of no return.
Picture yourself standing watch on this bridge during the midnight watch. Junior officers who were analyzing that highly accurate SATC data realized the ship was going to pass within just 22 miles of the hurricane's eye. They were so alarmed they called the captain's cabin, not once but twice, suggesting course deviations. And the captain's response? He literally stayed in his cabin and ordered them over the ship's phone to hold course.
So ask yourself, if you were that third mate, and you knew the ship was sailing into a monster storm, how would you assertively challenge the master? On the El Faro, the junior officers voiced their concerns meekly, sure, but they never firmly challenged the captain's authority. They just hung up the phone and dutifully steered the ship into the abyss. Guys, this is a catastrophic breakdown in bridge resource management.
950. That is the chilling millibar reading recorded on the bridge at 5:22 a.m. To put that in perspective, this extreme drop in barometric pressure meant only one thing. The El Faro was perilously close to the eye of the intensifying Hurricane Joaquin. Sustained winds were just roaring, and the vessel was violently pitching and rolling. Okay, here is the exact mechanical chain reaction that doomed the vessel. Those hurricane-force winds created a severe, sustained starboard list. Now, because the ship had departed with lube oil levels slightly below the manufacturer's recommendation, that oil pooled all the way to one side of the sump as the vessel listed 15 degrees. This extreme angle literally exposed the suction bell mouth of the lube oil pump to open air. The pump lost section, oil pressure dropped, and the main steam turbine automatically shut itself down to protect itself. The result of that engine trip? Immediate and absolutely catastrophic. Just after 6 a.m., the ship's speed over ground plunged to 0. The captain announced over the radio that they had lost the plant. The ship was now completely dead in the water, pushed sideways, beamed to the massive, crashing waves of a Category 4 hurricane. At this point, panic really sets in, leading to the final critical breakdowns. A scuttle, which is a small hatch on hold 3, pops open, and uncontrolled downflooding begins. To try and access that scuttle, the captain orders a fatal maneuver, a turn to port to shift the wind to the other side and correct the list. But doing this in those massive sea states without propulsion only worsened their situation. And there's absolutely no record on the voyage data recorder of the crew consulting any approved damage control plan. They were essentially flying blind in a dying ship.
Part 3. After the incident, response and lessons learned.
At roughly 7:30 a.m., the captain ordered abandon ship, but it was just too late. The hull gave way, and the vessel rapidly sank, coming to rest at a crushing depth of over 15,000 feet. All 33 souls on board perished. It was the worst American maritime disaster in decades.
When search teams finally located the debris field, they recovered the El Faro's mangled starboard lifeboat. Remember how the ship was grandfathered out of modern safety rules? Well, she relied on antiquated open lifeboats. In a Category 4 hurricane with a severe list, these boats were completely inaccessible and utterly unsurvivable. The crew had absolutely no means of escape.
The joint investigation by the NTSB and Coast Guard identified multiple root causes. Yes, for sure, the captain failed to avoid the storm and relied on outdated weather data, but we have to look deeper. This was a systemic failure. It was ineffective bridge resource management. It was an inadequate safety management system from the company. It was a failure of regulatory bodies to enforce seaworthiness. Accidents are a chain of failures. If there's one critical lesson for every mariner watching this explainer to absorb, it's bridge resource management, or BRM. It's a process where crews use all available resources and act as a cohesive team, specifically encouraging junior officers to challenge their superiors when safety is at risk. Think about it. If BRM had been actively practiced on the El Faro, a junior officer would have demanded the captain come to the bridge, demanded a course change, and perhaps 33 people would still be alive today. So, what must you bring to your next watch? First off, always trust real-time data over pretty but outdated graphics. Second, assertively implement BRM. If you see something wrong, you must speak up. It is literally your duty. Third, know your vessel's damage control plan inside and out before you ever actually need it. And lastly, seaworthiness and human life must always take priority over a corporate cargo schedule. The voyage data recorder captured the haunting final moments on the bridge. As the ship was going down, a helmsman was trapped against the console by the extreme list, terrified and unable to climb up. The captain stayed with him, and his final recorded words before the audio cuts out to the sound of rushing water were, "I'm not leaving you." It is a sobering, deeply tragic reminder of the ultimate human cost when the chain of safety fails. Which leaves us with this final thought. Accidents don't just happen instantly out of nowhere. They are built, link by link. As a seafarer, you have the power to stop a Cascade event. So ask yourself, what link in the chain will you break on your next watch?